What is going on with Barbrey Dustin in A Song of Ice and Fire? Whose side is she on, and what really motivates her? Let's take a look. Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to In Deep Geek. On this channel we cover A Song of Ice and Fire, The Lord of the Rings, and other great fantasy books and TV shows like The Witcher. Welcome. The character of Barbrey Dustin is one of the most intriguing in A Song of Ice and Fire. She has opinions and a history, and, quite rarely for a Northern lord or lady, clearly despises the memory of Ned Stark. But there are clearly layers there that we often don't peel back. She isn't just a Stark-hating Bolton supporter. There's a lot more going on there than meets the eye. So let's start with her history. She was born Barbrey Riswell. The Riswells aren't as prominent in the story as some other northern houses, but they are a significant house nonetheless, to the extent that Lord Roderick Riswell thought to marry his eldest daughter Barbrey to a Stark. There's nothing wrong with aiming high, but we know of at least one Riswell who had previously married a Stark, so it's a reasonable possibility. This hope was only fanned by Brandon Stark, that's Ned's brother, who was then the heir to Winterfell, growing close to Barbrey. He was being fostered down in nearby Barrowton at the time, and often rode with his friends in the Rills, Riswell country. They became lovers, the two of them. She fell deeply in love with him. We don't hear his side of things. And then this. The day I learned that Brandon was to marry Catelyn Tully, though, there was nothing sweet about that pain. He'd never wanted her, I promise you that. He told me so on our last night together. But Rickard Stark had great ambitions too, Southron ambitions, that would not be served by having his heir marry the daughter of one of his own vassals. Afterward, my father nursed some hope of wedding me to Brandon's brother Eddard, but Catelyn Tully got that one as well. I was left with young Lord Dustin, until Ned Stark took him from me. So she fell in love with Brandon. Then he got promised to another, then her father hoped to marry her to Ned, then that didn't happen because Ned married Catelyn Tully, again for political reasons, so she was instead married to William Dustin. As far as we can tell, that was a positive, albeit short relationship. She may not have married the man she loved or gained her father quite the political match he wanted, but perhaps she could have grown to love her husband. We'll never know. Within half a year, though, he had gone to war with Ned Stark, against her pleading, and he then died at the Tower of Joy. He was one of Ned's 6 companions there, along with Mark Riswell, incidentally. We're not told exactly who he was, but his name suggests a relation of Lady Barbrey's, so she probably lost 2 people there. Barbrey Dustin again picks up the story, telling Theon that Ned Stark returned the horse to me on his way back home to Winterfell. He told me that my lord had died an honourable death, that his body had been laid to rest beneath the red mountains of Dawn. He brought his sister's bones back north, though, and there she rests, but I promise you, Lord Eddard's bones will never rest beside hers. I mean to feed them to my dogs. Theon did not understand. His bones? Her lips twisted. It was an ugly smile, a smile that reminded him of Ramsay's. Catelyn Tully dispatched Lord Eddard's bones north before the Red Wedding, but your iron uncle seized Moat Cailin and closed the way. I've been watching ever since. Should those bones ever emerge from the swamps, they will get no further than Barrowton. She threw one last lingering look at the likeness of Eddard Stark. We are done here. I did a whole other video about where those bones might be, but her hatred of Ned Stark is clear to see. And that is where some fans' analysis of her character ends. She comes across as rather bitter and holding grudges, against Ned Stark even after his death, against the Maesters, or the Grey Sheep as she calls them, for apparently encouraging Rickard Stark's Southron ambitions, thereby preventing her from marrying Brandon. She always wears black, seemingly in mourning for the man, or men, she lost. Her words are cutting, her smile is described as ugly and feral. George R. R. Martin has leaned heavily into making us see her as a not particularly sympathetic character, which has led many to assume that when she appears in the story as having bent the knee to Roose Bolton, she, and House Dustin, which she now leads, must be one of the few unambiguously anti-Stark and pro-Bolton people in the North. She hates the memory of Ned Stark, so why not? Well, I want to suggest to you that there are plenty more layers going on here than that. Which isn't to say that she isn't sincere in hating Ned Stark, even after his death. She definitely seems to be sincere, and she may even be a bit justified in that. It's clear that Ned not only didn't bring her husband's bones back north with him, while obviously bringing his own sisters, but also clearly refused to tell her even where they were buried, so Barbrey Dustin could go and bring them back herself. And House Dustin were not just a normal house in that regard. We think of the Starks as being connected to their dead, but House Dustin are, if anything, even more so. Their home is called Barrowton because it is in the middle of the Barrowlands, where the ancient dead of the north are buried. Their hall is literally built on top of the Great Barrow, where the first king of the First Men is supposed to be buried. They take burying their dead seriously. Ned had his reasons for not bringing back those bones, but because he refused to explain them, it wasn't just a hurtful thing to do to Barbrey Dustin, it was an insult to House Dustin as a whole. But all that said, her hatred of the Starks is more nuanced than it might appear. Witness this conversation with Theon. He speaks first. "My lady, why do you hate the Starks?" She studied him. "For the same reason you love them. Why do you love the Starks?" Theon put a gloved hand against a pillar. "I wanted to be one of them. And never could. We have more in common than you know, my lord." She wanted to be a Stark, and clearly doesn't hate all Starks. When she sees the statue of her old lover Brandon, she takes off her glove and touches his knee, then starts reminiscing about the things he said and their time together. So she doesn't think that all Starks are necessarily bad. One definitely not, and her passing reference to Lyanna was also quite kindly. And to add another level to this, even if she is disposed against the Starks, there is someone else that she does appear to hate quite a lot. Ramsay Bolton. Again, this is a grudge from her past, though again it seems quite justified. Barbrey Dustin was close to her nephew Domeric. He was her page in Barrowton for 4 years, and if you're wondering where you've heard that name Domeric before, he was also the firstborn and only son of Barbrey's sister Bethany and Roose Bolton, the heir to House Bolton. Domeric, always having wanted a brother, visited his bastard half-brother Ramsay, then died in mysterious circumstances. Almost no one doubts that Ramsay killed him. Barbrey Dustin certainly thinks so. We know that she holds a grudge, so we can expect her to still hate him and want revenge. And sure enough, when the Boltons arrive at Barrowton, she makes a point of refusing to let Ramsay enter her great hall. Make no mistake, that was a huge political move. The Ramsays had just taken control of the north by taking part in a massacre of their northern allies. Ramsay was clearly livid at the snub, and she still refused to let him in. It would be enough to make any new Warden of the North question her loyalty, which Roose Bolton actually does, though he concludes that she is still on his side. He says this to Ramsay. "Lady Barbrey is a woman who knows how to nurse a grievance. Be grateful for that. Barrowton is staunch for Bolton, largely because she still holds Ned Stark to blame for her husband's death." "Staunch?" Ramsay seethed. "All she does is spit on me. The day will come when I'll set her precious wooden town afire. Let her spit on that, see if it puts out the flames." Roose made a face, as if the ale he was sipping had suddenly gone sour. "We appear strong for the moment, yes. We have powerful friends in the Lannisters and the Freys, and the grudging support of much of the North. But what do you imagine is going to happen when one of Ned Stark's sons turns up? How many of our grudging friends do you imagine we'd retain if the truth were known? Only Lady Barbrey, whom you would turn into a pair of boots. Inferior boots." So Ramsay clearly hates her back, and Roose thinks she is loyal to him, not out of any affection for him or the Boltons, but despite that, and because of her hatred of Ned. On balance, that she hates the dead ex-Lord of the Starks more than the still-alive heir to the Boltons. Perhaps. But then what happens if Ramsay kills Roose and takes over? Which there are more than a few indications he may be thinking about. Does she still support the Boltons? It seems unlikely. One thing that certainly seems to be the case is that she is protective of Jane Poole, the fake Arya whom Ramsay marries. She insists on keeping Jane under her protection en route to Winterfell and until the wedding itself, and she may even have guessed that the fake Arya is fake. Theon thinks that she may have done. It's probably worth another video. There's evidence a few of the other Northerners aren't convinced she really is Arya, or that all the Starks are dead. And we can add to all of that the fact that Barbrey Dustin also clearly hates the Freys for what they did at the Red Wedding. There were Barraton soldiers there too. If you've seen my video about the snowmen in Winterfell, you'll know that I think there's a chance that her being made into a snowman, or snow woman, may reveal she is secretly on the Stark loyalist side. That said, she has been trying to calm tensions between the Manderleys and Freys in Winterfell, and mentions casually that fake Arya's crying was harming our cause by potentially turning the Northerners more against the Boltons. All of which means that Barbrey Dustin's loyalties are not as rabidly anti-Stark as they are sometimes made out to be, but also not obviously against the Bolton regime, just Ramsay. Finally, I would draw your attention to two other curious things. First, her strange behaviour in the Winterfell crypts. She demands that Theon take her down there, which is quite an effort, taking half an hour to dig away the snow over the entrance. She does the two things we might expect her to do, gaze upon the likeness of Brandon Stark and note where Ned's statue and grave were, presumably to ensure his bones hadn't somehow evaded her and made their way there. But she also, very obviously, notes the 3 missing swords, calling attention to them. Why does that matter? Because Wyman Manderley at least knows that Bran and Rickon survived, having hidden in the crypts, and although we don't know everything that Wex, his witness, revealed, it seems reasonable that he might have discovered that Bran and co. took those 3 swords from the crypts, which would then be a key bit of evidence if you want to persuade someone else in Winterfell that you are telling the truth about Bran and Rickon surviving. Might Barbrey Dustin have been in those crypts at least partly to see whether the swords really were gone? It's possible. Theon, who is deceptively observant in these chapters, certainly wonders whether she might have told other people about the missing swords, as if that's the most important thing they found down there. He seems aware of the implications and thinks she might be too. The second curious thing is an observation that her actions and motivations align surprisingly closely with Mance raiders. Remember, Mance is in Winterfell disguised as Abel the Bard with 6 spearwives. She takes an active interest in the well-being of fake Arya. They are there to rescue her. She gets Theon to take her to the crypts. They try to do the same. She proactively tries to calm tensions in Winterfell. So does he. I'm not suggesting that they are working together, but their interests do seem to align. And if she does realise that fake Arya isn't actually Arya, she might see her as yet another victim of the Starks and the Boltons and worthy of her help, a plague on both their houses. So where does all this leave us? Well, we started by noting that Barbrey Dustin is a multi-layered character, so we shouldn't expect her to fit into easy pigeonholes as a Stark or a Bolton loyalist. She definitely does hate the Starks, though not all Starks, mostly just Ned. There's no indication that she bears any of the younger family any particular ill will. And she also really doesn't love the Boltons. Roose for his role in the Red Wedding, and the Freys for the same reason, and Ramsay for killing her nephew. At the moment, she seems to still, on balance, be publicly supportive of the Boltons, but if things change, I do not doubt that she will fall in line, while still trying to ensure that Ned's bones don't make it back. But what do you think? What do you think Barbrey Dustin is up to? Let me know in the comments below. If you'd like to see more A Song of Ice and Fire videos, please click on the link on the left of your screen. Or if you'd like to support this channel, thank you. There's a link to my Patreon page on the right of your screen now. That's all for this time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon.